Welcome to this week's Entrepreneurial Artist. I'm Chris Mercer and I'm with my lovely co-host, Kat Machin.
Hi,
Today we're
Chris.
talking about, hi Kat, today we're talking about planning. Now, if you'd said to me probably a few years ago, planning, I would have thought, oh my God, it's, so boring, don't want to do it, and it's just not my thing. But I tell you now that I've been doing it for a few years, it's like one of my favorite things and something that just sort of keeps me on track every day. So we both work on annual plans, don't we, Kat?
That's right. And I must add to that is that if I don't do a plan for any particular quarter, I feel so lost
Oh yeah.
in like my business direction. And
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of this, a lot of people would think, well, do artists really need to plan? And art is still a valid business and you still need to have some sort of business plan. It's so essential.
Yeah. It's not, as an artist, it's if you still run the business and you still want to get up every morning and go, what am I doing today? You need a plan to keep you on track. Otherwise, you probably all know the feeling of you just get up and you just start wandering about, not sure what to do, have a dabble here and there. But if you've got your plan, you're always on task.
Yeah, and I think more than that as well. Like, so firstly, you get that beautiful clarity where you know what you're doing every day. But I think also it's that you can start to move your operations, everything that you do forward towards something far, far greater than you could ever have just done by sheer chance.
Yeah.
And you can take the sort of chance work out of it and actually work to something that is like a significant milestone, or in the case of a previous episode when we were talking about pulling down your mission, this is actually how you get to your mission. It's like the roadmap to your mission, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So it's really actually really rewarding, isn't it? Because you can see everything that you do every day is like one step further closer to your mission. We'll start off with an annual plan, which we'll start. We've got a couple of different ways that we do things. Kat's got a different way. We'll start with our mission and then reverse engineer the mission. Your mission's 10 years. What do you want to achieve this year? And so we start looking at that as your first thing.
And I think once you've got that starting point, you've got your where you want to be in a 10-year, and you've got your sort of figured out roughly what you want to achieve within this first year. So you've just broken it down, they say the way you eat an elephant is one bite at a time. Not that I eat elephants, but
If you did,
the next thing is really no, not at all. The next thing is coming up with these strategic questions, right? And a strategic question is how do I give them that? So you think about all the different aspects that you need to do. So let's say, for instance, if your 10-year mission is that you want to reach 1 million people a year with your artwork, or you want to spread the message of whatever it is that you are, is really important to you. You break it down. So let's say, for instance, you want to target or manage to reach, let's say, 10,000 this first year. So you create strategic questions around it. So like, how do I achieve 10,000, like reach, like, or share my mission with 10,000 people, given that, and it might be given that I don't have a platform, or given that, I haven't developed my message, or given that, something. So you just sort of keep on breaking it down and down until you've got all of these different strategic questions. There'll be many. It'll be like, how do I, maybe your mission or part of your thing you want to achieve is a website that can garner sales, right? It's like, how do I get a website given that I've not got I don't know how to code, or given that I have never made one before, or whatever it is. And I think once you've got a big list of those strategic questions, because actually the gold is in those questions.
Yeah. And I suppose another example is, say, like for sales, if you want to achieve $100,000 in your first year, then you can sort of look at that and say, well, how am I going to achieve $100,000 given that I only create 4 paintings? We're not looking at the moment of the how you're going to do it. We're looking for the objective and then the obstacle that's in our way. Because the how we do it, we can figure out later on. There's always the how bit is actually completely easy. It's figuring out what we want.
And I would add to that, that sometimes things come up in the course of the year, things will come up. And like, I use this example, like I was talking to a friend about their business and they were like, oh, you know, I need to get a business manager. I need to hire a new business manager. And I said, and she's struggling, couldn't find the right talent to fill that spot. And anyway, it turns out that actually when we looked at it, she was doing all these hours of cleaning. And actually, she could have just hired a cleaner and that would have given her the time rather than having to hire a whole business manager. So sometimes the very first thing that you come up with is not always the right one. And also things change. New doors open up all the time. So it's just good to know the objective and what the issue, like what the challenge is around it, but not necessarily how you're going to fix it. Like staying off the how is very challenging because you sort of just naturally want to just write down the answer.
Yeah.
But I think that often, and also I like to think of it like this, your subconscious mind is phenomenal. And I think we've all had this scenario where, you know, we've been out and about, we've met someone and you're thinking in the shower, like, oh God, who is it that I met in the party? I can't remember the name. What was it? And then like 4 hours later that day, you sit up and you go, oh, it was, I don't know, it was Emily or it was Stephen or whatever it is. And then you weren't actively thinking that whole time, but your subconscious mind was going over it. And like, once you've written these like strategic questions, what happens is that your brain just keeps on working, and it's important to revisit it daily. Your brain keeps on working on it, and then all of a sudden you just have that, we've all had that flash of inspiration. I could ask this person, or I could do whatever it is to solve your problem. But if you'd have just sat there and wrote I'll speak today. If you just wrote don't get English advice from me. If you've just written the answer, what it does is it closes off your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind can't continue processing it. You've already come out with this solution, so you're going to stop thinking about it. But that might not be the most elegant solution, because sometimes these things take time, even though I think I'm guilty of this, is you want to sort of rush the finish line.
Yeah.
And be like, I want to have everything laid out.
The answer. You don't use like, oh, well, I know how to fix that. But staying off the how, you'll probably get like multiple answers to it. Where when you go straight to, oh, I can fix this and that, you don't open yourself up, as you're saying, to lots of different possibilities that might just pop in. They're not like normal things, are they?
And there might be an absolute piece of gold that you miss by doing that. So write down your strategic questions, and then from those strategic questions.
Before we get into that, Kat, I love the way that you said about the way you did it with the mapping as well, because that will get you to strategic questions. So that's another way to do it before we get into other.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I love this video. It's actually one of those videos that changed my life. And it's a TED Talk. If you've not watched any TED Talks, where have you been? And it's by a lady called Patty Dabrowski, Patty, and please don't make me spell Dabrowski because of the letter D. Anyway, she does this talk called Draw Your Future, and it is like amazing, like so amazing. And what she does is you basically like draw literally a crappy sketch, which hopefully everyone here can do. It doesn't matter. It could be a stick figure of where you are right now, all the challenges, the obstacles, how you're feeling, what's your surroundings, what are your opportunities or whatever. And then the same, but where you want to be, your goal, your dream. Doesn't even have to necessarily be realistic. I mean, within the bounds of physics, of course, it can't be like, I want magical superpowers. But, you know, if anyone else in the world has already achieved it, then you can write that down on the piece of paper. I like to look at it like that, right? So, and go a bit wild. Like the whole point of it's got to give you goosebumps. You know, you don't want to. It's not going to be too. Yeah, it's gotta be though, gotta be set your soul on fire. And then what you do, and it's just so magical, is because you have those two visual things in front of you, your brain just naturally starts to connect, and from those two things, what you can do is write down strategic questions or strategic, like, so how do I get this given that I've got X, Y, or Z challenge? And by doing that, it's just when you see them, the issues that you have just suddenly come very, it's amazing how it happens. Being able to see, like, I often think that people's brains must work in stories, because being able to see the two images really helps you build the story of how you get from A to B. And ultimately that is your plan, isn't it? Or at least the startings of.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's like, from those strategic questions, like we've got the obstacle that's in the way, then we flip it over to the other side and look at it. What would it be like afterwards? So say like the obstacle is I've got no website, and you flip the card on that, and then to achieve your annual goal may read that you want you now have a sales converting website, converts 50 sales a week. So
right,
we have SMART goals. So SMART goals means they're specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're realistic, and they're time-based. So time-based, it's like annual goal. Realistic, that you can do it. Achievable, same thing again. And specific, you're saying exactly it, so it can be measured at the end of the year, that you can go tick tick, done that.
Yeah, that's right. And I think also when you write it out, like, sort of free, so you don't specifically say, oh, I need to specifically hire this person to do this task at this stage, is because you might get down the road and realize that the sales converting website that you actually need isn't even yours. It might actually be that you need to sign up to Blue Thumb or Fine Art America or wherever it is, so it gives you the opportunity to, like, sort of laterally think about these things. I love. And I think one thing about writing priorities is that when you start, there are a bloody lot of them.
Yes.
And that as you work your way through the years of doing this, they get smaller and smaller. My list is actually not massive anymore. And that's so at the beginning, I think that you could be quite overwhelmed because you're like, oh God, there's a lot on here. But you don't have to work on everything right now. I think it's important.
Well, that's where we have the annual plan. So then you would have switched all those objections that you had into a plan that you can achieve. So we're still not looking at how we do it. So say I've given you the website example. Say another example might be, say you want to produce prints, say, and it might be I produce and sell 100 prints a month. That might be, a month. So you do that by 12. So because it'll be your annual goal. So it'll be 1,200 prints per year would be your annual target. So then from your annuals, that's when we start breaking it down into quarterlies. So then we'll start looking at, okay, that's what I want to achieve in a year. So the first quarter of that year, what do I want to pull down from that list to start working on? And I don't know about you, Kat, but like from the quarterlies, I pull it down to monthlies before I get to the weeklies as well.
That's amazing. I don't do that, but I feel like it's one of those things that I should do. And having those monthlies you know what, it's funny because I've actually written on my planning that I need to have monthly planning sessions, but I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, well, I find it too big. I find it too big to go from, a quarterly to go, well, what am I supposed to do today? But when I can see it as a monthly, so when I've broken it down then into, say, like September, I only have to look at what I want to achieve in September every single week, because then we'll break it down into weeklies, but we'll have our tops. Do you want to talk on
so because I don't know if we've said top is a tactical operating priority. So it's the kind of the same as an annual priority, but the word tactical means that you're working on it right now, because you're going to have priorities that you're not going to work on right now. So the idea of breaking it down, so you've got all of your list of annuals, then you break it down into what am I working on this quarter, they become tops, and then what am I working on this month, there's still like it's one or two of those tops. And like, here's the thing, you're not meant to be working on a million of them at once. Like, and I think that a lot of artists might fall into this trap, and I know I have in the past, I'm like trying to be an overachiever and get 8 or 9 tops in there, and it's just a lot, you know. I think also the thing I want to mention right now is that like, it has to be a balance between working on your business, because these are all things that are like working on your business versus working in your business. So the difference being is, you know, if I'm at my canvas or easel painting, I'm working in my business, I'm operating, or if I'm packing artworks or whatever, it's not necessarily moving, it's like moving the day-to-day ahead, but not moving the general direction of the company ahead.
Yeah.
But I have to balance that also with working on the business. So, you know, looking at strategies, you know, building marketing things, you know, organizing big projects for the future, doing business deals, all of that kind of stuff is like working on the business. Or even like, you know, it could even be like sorting out your financials and getting your financial accounting systems. All of that is on your business versus like the actual labor that goes into making the actual pieces, which is in your business. So you need a bit of both. I think one of the worst pieces of advice I ever had was someone said, oh, you need to stop working in your business. You need to work on your business, which I think is a good luxury if you're not an artist and you're selling your own paintings, because you actually have to paint.
Yeah, that doesn't quite work for us, does it?
No, it's a bit of a challenge, you know, but equally the same could be true if all you're doing is what I call treading water. You're not moving your business forward.
What percentage do you reckon you work on the business and then in the business?
It changes, I think, from week to week, depending on like what is going on. But generally speaking, it's probably about 50-50 for me right now. But it does swing quite wildly. Some days I've had months actually where I've done no painting, no artwork, because all I'm doing is like project focused. And then there's some months where I've done absolutely nothing on the business, but like on the whole, I think it's really turned out to be about 50-50. But I have heard other people say 80-20, like 80 in your business, 20 on your business.
Yeah.
So,
but I do agree with you that it changes, because of late, I've been doing lots of things on my website. It's been like 95-5, you know.
right.
Yeah. But, you know, that will change again next week. But yeah, I think maybe, you know, 50-50 or 80-20, it does seem to be the thing, doesn't it?
Yeah. And because it is one of these misconceptions. And actually, I would say that this is the determining point between whether you are successful in art or whether you are scraping by, is how much is actually allotting some time and giving yourself permission some time to actually work on your business, sorting out the nuts and bolts, the systems and processes, the way that you do your customer service, the way that you do your marketing planning, and all of that stuff that we'll probably talk about later. You know, and the way that you build your, you know, all of those things are so essential that if all you do is sit at your easel and paint, then, you know, it's a challenge, because sometimes artwork is just for ourselves. And if that's you, that's fine. But if you really want to make it your living, which I think is the best gift, honestly, because I would rather not have to do a full-time job, because that means I can spend more time painting.
And I think if you're watching this, that's probably something that's on your mind.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Otherwise,
right, for sure. So it's worth spending the 80 or the 50% of your time doing the business aspect of your art so that you don't have to necessarily have a full-time job outside of it just to make ends meet, because really you have everything within your power to be super successful, but you got to do the you got to do the business side of things. That's actually all, and I mean, this is a very cold and impassionate way of saying it, but art businesses are manufacturing jobs. You're a factory producing a product that people want. That's a terrible way to put it. There's a lot more emotion and feeling into it, of course, but
We've got to let
ultimately,
people know.
yeah, for sure.
People know.
So
That's
once
what
you've
people know
got your
that you know, we're there. You're saying if you spend all your time painting,
Mm,
I don't know you exist.
yeah, it's so sad, and especially because I think everyone watching this got an important mission, an important purpose, and we all want to, like, not everyone, but hopefully everyone really wants to help the world with their artwork, but the only way of doing that is getting it out there. So once we've got our tops for the quarter, and then obviously what you do is you break it into your weekly goals. So you've got your strategic questions, break that down into a list of priorities. A section of them, they're your tactical priorities, and the ones you're going to work on that month. So that tactical priority might be like build a website. But that's too big to put in a week slot. So we break it down to what you're going to achieve in that week. So that we call that a goal. So when you look at your tops, do you have a particular method of like breaking it down into what you're working on that particular week, or is it just you go by feel?
Just by what's most urgent and what would move me forward the most.
Oh,
Yeah, I just
I
look
love
at that.
there's that diagram which is by someone which I've forgotten their name, but it's like urgent versus
Oh yeah,
important.
yeah,
And I love doing that as a way to prioritize what I'm working on.
yeah.
So the way that I define urgent is if I don't do something, something bad will happen. And the way that I define important is if I do something, something good will happen.
Mm,
Because, for instance, there are lots of things that are urgent, but not important. It's often because it's like somebody else's, there's still things you've got to work on. Like, for instance, an urgency might be that your child is sick and you need to go and pick them up, but that might not be important for your business per se. So if you don't do that, something bad will happen. Your child is really important. So that's how I would define urgent. Urgent and unimportant things, often I would say, is like, often it's like tasks placed on us by other people. It might be like, something someone else needs you to do. And then you've got urgent and important. And those ones, I'm like, they're red hot, like get them done. If you don't do them, something bad's going to happen. If you do them, something good is going to happen. It's great. Then you've got where most of the planning thing comes in, like with long-term vision, is things that are important but not urgent. And I've always had a challenge. Like, I love a good deadline, me,
mm.
but sometimes sometimes I like to wait until the last minute, I'll be honest.
Oh, it makes you move, doesn't it? It makes you move.
It does. It puts a little fire under you. But there's lots of those like things that aren't urgent. But if you do them, life is going to be so much better in the future.
Mm,
Those are the ones that I really try to put into my goals
mm,
sooner rather than later. And then you've got ones that aren't urgent and aren't important. And
mm,
often those are things you just get rid of,
mm.
for
But
sure.
these are things that you can see, isn't it? As you're doing the plan, you can, as you've
Yeah.
broken it down so much, you can just pick, what's going to make your life easiest to do to move you forward every week towards that mission.
Yeah. So as an example, like your top might be to sell 50 artworks.
Mm,
Your goal might be, all right, well, this week I'm going to sign up to this Blue Thumb website, or I'm going to sign up to a different, like, it's the Saatchi and Saatchi website, or I'm going to I need to make a website. So I'm going to look at hiring someone that can do it, for instance. And that might be a goal, which is something that's big enough to take a week. So that you can tick it off. And we usually pick about 5 of those
mm,
sort of weekly things. And then once you've got those 5, it's then breaking it down into the daily tasks. So what are you doing specifically today? So, in that example, you might be like, okay, well, first things first, today's task is I'm going to research the 3 different online sales platforms to see which one's best for me. And then the second task for that particular day might be, okay, well, I'm going to take some professional photographs of my artwork because that's going to be needed to put my artwork online. And then the third one might be that I'm going to just do the base level of the setup. And then the next day you might finish off the setup, you might import all your artwork. So it's like strategic questions at the top, priorities. You break your priorities down, and these all connect. Like, you shouldn't just put random priorities in there, or random tops, or random goals, or random tasks. You can, of course, do them because this should only be 50 or even 20% of your operations. But the idea is that everything is chain linked from your mission.
Yeah.
So everything connects.
Yeah. So
Don't know what else I was going to say.
It's pulled down, isn't it? So, by the end of the year, you've ticked off all your annuals because you've been pulling them down the chain, as you said. So you're actioning them all the time. If you start to feel overwhelmed with things, that's because you maybe not chunking them down enough. You're trying to do too much, and you just need to break it down a little bit more so it's more manageable. But then you still know you're moving forward.
One of the things I do, so occasionally I get tasks stuck, and I was talking to Chris earlier about this, which is like, you've got something and it's important, and you got to do it, but you just struggle to bring yourself to do it. Like, I have had some of those things. There's loads of different solutions. Like, one of the things I really recommend is what's called a body double, which is someone who will just sit with you while you do it. It doesn't have to be like doing it. They're just, someone to be there that helps you keep focused. But the other thing that I really like is breaking those tasks down to steps. If it's so overwhelming that I'm just can't bring myself to actually get that task done, is that I break it into steps, and I might just do 1 or 2 of those steps. And often I pick up a momentum so I get the actual task done in the end.
Yeah.
So how frequently is planning done?
Well, we do it annually. We revisit it every quarter. So you've got 1 annual and you've got 3 quarters, because one of those quarters is an annual. And then you can revisit monthly and check where you're up to. That's not something I do, but that's something that you can do if you want to.
And then from those monthlies, we break it down into weeks. At the beginning of every week, on every Monday, we sit down and we go, what are the 5 goals that we want to achieve? And we write them down. And I think it's important to write it down every single Monday consistently. Yeah. And my team do this as well. And I do this with my team. And then once that Monday morning's a little longer, so technically we're there at it every single work day. It's just every work day is different. So some of those work days you'll be only doing daily. Some of those work days you'll just be doing a weekly. Some of them will be in a monthly. Some will be a quarter. Some will be an annual, as an example. Yeah. But I think the key is that you're looking at it every day.
Yes.
There's not a day where you don't look at it. And there's a lot of power to that. And as well, mentioned earlier about the subconscious mind. When you're looking at that plan all the time, it is amazing what pops out of the woodwork when you least expect it. A rogue thought. Because honestly, I think a lot of us have got challenges, but we're only 2 steps away from achieving them. It's just realizing what course of action to take.
Yeah. Yeah. And having that there every day, that's just, keeps you on track, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. For sure. So Chris, what are your top 3 planning tips?
First one would be revisit your mission and to see where to start, because that's your starting point, and then reverse engineer it. So you'll know your first year what you want to achieve, and then that will kick you off on your plan. And it's fun. Planning's fun. It's this is planning your future in advance, so don't take it all seriously and get worked up about it. I suppose that's my second one. Don't get bogged down and don't get overwhelmed with it, really, because if you didn't have one before, now you're making something up that you can move you forward and create the life of your dreams. So it's a fun activity. Don't get overwhelmed. Don't take it too seriously. And my third one is look at it every day. Because we break it down into our goals for the whole week, we've got that. I stick it on my computer and I look at it every day. And if there's any point where I go, I don't know where I'm up to, I've got off track, I just pop that up on my screen and think, oh yeah, okay, this is okay. I've done that. I'm on to this one now. So it's not a planning process that you just stick up on the shelf and you don't bother, you're wasting your time doing it. This is an active live planning process that you look at every single day to move you forward to where you want to go. How about you,
I love
Kat?
that. So it's so funny because we write our top 3 totally independently. My number 1 is start from your 10-year mission.
Must be right.
Snap. Obviously, I mentioned it before, but it doesn't necessarily, it should be something that it gives you goosebumps and makes you feel like, whoa. And you know what? Your mission should scare you just a little bit. And I think that's important. The second thing, I want to redo my first one because you've already done that. So one of the things I would suggest is, look, it's a daily occurrence and it makes a lot of difference to be able to do this with another person. So if you have another artist or another friend that's running a business that wants to do this, there is a lot of power in having an accountability buddy, or even better 2, because obviously if there's just one you and one other, if someone's sick, it can't happen. But if you and 2 other people want to do this together and just meet up every day, it should only take 15 minutes. A quick hello. This is what I've done. This is what I'm doing today. That's it. Doesn't have to be long-winded or stories, but it's being in a meeting, like a routine, talking about it every day. At the beginning, preferably. The second thing is make sure you write it down and look at it daily. I think we've all done that thing where we've written goals down and lost the paper. And then later on, we've been like, oh, I've actually ticked off a bunch. I do it all. I used to do it all the time. And occasionally I find them around the house and it's wonderful joy. But that's what happens when you just write it down once. But when you write it down, you look at it consistently. Wow, what a difference that makes. And number 3, and I've said it before, but just understand that you've got to work on the business as well as in the business. Give and take, they've both got to be present in order for you to get absolute success. So just be okay. There's some days you're not going to be painting all the time. On some days you are going to be painting all the time. Just make that balance nicely, and you'll have great success. So any other comments you want to make, Chris?
Just don't get bogged down in the how, I suppose. Just repeat that again when you writing up what you want your annual goal to achieve. Because we can put ourselves off, can't we? Soon, I can go straight into, well, how's that going to happen? And then that's it. Then it's like, whoa, so it's like, don't get bogged in the how. The how ideas will come of how to make that happen. Yeah,
100%. Make it fun. And life is very serious anyway. So yeah, well, thanks for that, Chris. Well, if you are listening, what is your 10-year mission? We'd love to know. And how are you going to break that down? Have you got any priorities? Let us know in the comments. If you have any suggestions for future episodes, make sure you let us know. Don't forget us. Don't forget to follow us. Follow us on all the different socials. We've put links in the description. Next week, we're going to talk about building an audience. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, Kat.